The leaders of South Korea and China have agreed that North Korea's nuclear program must end. South Korea's President Park Geun-hye is in Beijing for talks with President Xi Jinping. Both leaders say that negotiations with North Korea must be resumed to ensure stability on the Korean peninsula. Well, Stephanie Kleine-Ahlbrandt is Project Director for Northeast Asia and China Advisor at International Crisis Group. She joins me now from Beijing. Stephanie, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. How much do these talks matter, do you think?
Well, it was widely anticipated that we would see a statement by both sides on denuclearization, but I do think that it's powerfully symbolic to have really on the one side North Korea's arch rival and on the other side its main benefactor coming together to send such a strong message to North Korea.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, to hear that China have within the last few hours backed South Korea's plans to resume those negotiations with North Korea. But as we know, and as you've just mentioned, China is an ally to North Korea. So how much meaning or real meaning is there behind these words that are very much the ones that we hear in sound bites and headlines?
Well, that's true. I mean, we do have to give some importance to a change in rhetoric on China's side. Since the third nuclear test, China has been employing much bolder rhetoric. Obviously, it has supported sanctions. It's had a public debate in the country. But in terms of its policy, it's really designed to inflict limited pain on Pyongyang in order to get Pyongyang to come back to talks. There's not really stomach in China to in any way alter the economic lifeline that it gives out to North Korea.
You just flesh out for us in a bit more detail, if you can, what you mean by the relationships have changed between China and the Korean peninsula. I mean, how so?
Well, China has been very frustrated recently with some of the actions of North Korea. It feels that it hasn't been very respected on the one hand. It feels that the talks that it felt that it was at the center of, the six-party talks, have been dissolved now for several years. These were talks that China felt very important because it allowed them to control the situation to a certain extent, to be in the middle between all of the parties, and to keep tensions at bay. They don't have an excellent relationship with Kim Jong-un. They don't feel that they're kept informed by him about when and how he's going to engage in provocations. And frankly, they really resent the fact that these provocations are bringing what they see as a larger American military presence in the region in order to back up the U.S. allies of South Korea and Japan. And
I presume, Stephanie, we're not necessarily just talking in the context of political structure, but there's also economic ramifications to what happens in that part of the world too.
Well, that's absolutely the case. China and North Korea have a huge economic relationship, but it's interesting to compare it to South Korea. Of course, China and South Korean relationship, China is South Korea's #1 trading partner. It's some $18 billion. If you look at China and North Korea, it's some $5–6 billion. So it really dwarfs the relationship that China has with North Korea. And you see that, you know, in China you have a lot of youth that really love South Korean pop culture. They love the electronic gadgets. There's a lot of affinity between China and South Korea.
Interesting. Stephanie, great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Stephanie Kleine-Ahlbrandt there.
Thank you.